Well, just how Julia Gillard's pre-poll affirmation that she doesn't believe in God will play in the electorate remains a great unknown. And while the Gillard declaration may be politically unique, Christian groups have continued a long tradition of attempting to exert pressure on both major parties. How much influence do Christians really wield on politics in Australia? Peter Lloyd's been examining the issue.
You could say John Howard's signature photo opportunity gave us proof of life. And Kevin Rudd's church front Sunday doorstops were his proof of faith. Then along came the Gillard coup. For the first time, a Prime Minister who was a woman and...
Do you believe in God?
No, I don't, John. I'm not a religious person.
But how important is that vote anyway?
Mr President, I'm a proud Australian family man.
After the 2004 election, the arrival in the Senate of the Family First Party Steve Fielding seemed to confirm the growing power of religious conservatives in national politics.
What Fielding's arrival did perhaps was to galvanise or to act as a kind of a lightning rod for a lot of attention to issues of religion and politics in Australia.
I hope that you find the strength of God in your lives, because this is the strength of a society and this will be the strength of our nation.
The Pentecostal Hillsong Church got the attention of then Treasurer and Deputy Liberal Party leader Peter Costello. John Howard and Alexander Downer also appeared at Hillsong events, convinced they could capture the support of a conservative Christian constituency for the coalition.
Why did you position yourselves in Canberra?
Well, obviously we're mainly trying to influence the federal government from here in Canberra.
If the conservative religious cause has mainstream profile, it's arguably thanks to former SAS commander Jim Wallace and his Australian Christian lobby. Headquartered in a commercial office complex a few minutes' drive from Parliament House, the Australian Christian lobby does just that.
We remain concerned that the traditional definition of marriage be maintained, and while both parties have given their commitment to that, we certainly need to know that in the case of Labor that will continue to stand beyond the National Labor Conference or the next National Labor Conference.
The ACL is a closed shop, a private company. Critics say its name lends the group false gravity.
I think what's just a little bit disingenuous is that you have a group of people called the Australian Christian Lobby, and I'm really not sure that they can be said to be representing anything like a single Christian vote.
Let's be clear that just as the Australian Conservation Foundation, I don't think, could claim to represent everybody who has an interest in trees, in the same way we don't presume to represent the whole of the Christian constituency.
Welcome to the 2010 Make It Count event.
For the past two federal elections, the Australian Christian Lobby has staged a Meet the National Leaders forum at Old Parliament House. This was one of Kevin Rudd's last appointments as Prime Minister. 2 days after this speech, he was dumped. For the man who organised the forum, Jim Wallace, this election is all about stopping the Australian Greens having the Senate balance of power.
We've seen them supporting euthanasia, supporting abortion, against prayers in Parliament, against ISP filtering. So on a great range of issues, we find ourselves at variance with the Greens.
With the balance of power in the Senate, any time the government wants to put through legislation, the Greens will get the final say before it can be passed.
For Christians and for anyone believing in Christian values, this should be a cause for grave concern.
The Australian Christian Lobby is not alone in spending money targeting Green Party candidates. Members of Fred Nile's Christian Democratic Party created this video message, placing it on a website called onevote.com.
We obviously hope that people will vote for the Christian Democratic Party, but that's not what that video is about. It's about warning people, particularly Christian, of the ramifications of the Greens having the balance of power with an atheist Prime Minister, then what we're likely to see go in terms of our Christian values and our freedoms.
This should not be open for debate.
Apparently unbeknown to the CDP, the onevote.com website carries links to the YouTube video uploaded by their opponent.
We care about people, we think long term, we stand up for the environment. So this time, vote Green in the Senate.
The Greens may be the target in this election, but in past campaigns, churches and Christian groups poured their resources in other directions.
In 2004, the Anglican and Catholic Archbishops of Sydney and Melbourne got involved in a very big way, criticising Mark Latham's education policy, for instance.
Mark Latham's sin was to propose a freeze on state funding for the elite church-run private schools.
I'm sure it did hurt Labor at the 2004 election, and as a consequence, and this is an example of church muscle on a particular issue, Labor has been much more careful about its education policy.
In this campaign, the Australian Christian Lobby is working hard to mobilise against the Greens. Jim Wallace remains convinced of the existence of an influential Christian vote.
Just by virtue of its size, the Christian constituency has to have political effect. If you have 19% of Australians going to church every month, once a month, then the reality is those people are going to look at the policies of the parties, their political decisions, just as they do their other decisions in life, through the prism of a Christian worldview to some degree.
Rodney Smith is a professor of government at Sydney University. He carried out a study of the results of the last election, looking for any evidence to support Jim Wallace's claim that the ACL influenced the vote.
The Australian Christian Lobby said that it was targeting some specific seats held by what it described as Libertarian Labor members of Parliament, and it was targeting those members of Parliament and the Greens in those electorates. If you look at those electorates, the swings in those electorates were no different, or in fact they were even slightly higher in most cases to Labor than the state swings in which those electorates fell. So it's very difficult to look at the 2007 election and take out of it a lesson that a Christian lobby group, or indeed a Christian denomination, can sway sufficient voters to have a big impact on the election outcome.
The Australian Christian Lobby's ambition to build a politically influential voice for a broad range of Christians may in the end be self-defeating. It may be that it's an umbrella for too many opinions.
The individual churches have trouble enough speaking with one voice because they represent such a diverse constituency. There's no such thing as a Catholic vote or an Anglican vote.
In this election, voters will for the first time have a clear choice between a leader of faith and a leader with none at all.
For Abbott, the suspicion will always be that he believes too much, that he's an old-fashioned Catholic ideological warrior. For Gillard, however, the problem is the public aren't convinced that she believes anything at all. In other words, the suspicion is that her lack of religious conviction might actually be a symptom of a lack of political conviction generally.
Judgment Day is August the 21st. Peter Lloyd, Lateline.